Okay, good morning. Thank you everyone for joining us today on Tuesday. You are sitting in on Tri-Cities webinar series, which we host every Tuesday at 11 a.m. And I'm pleased to welcome and introduce Dr. Patricia Wallace-Burke, who will be hosting our presentation today. She'll be doing a great presentation on building resiliency in the midst of psychosis. Before we get started, I just want to do a few housekeeping items before we move on. We're going to go to our housekeeping tips. If at any time I get broken up, please, my team in the back, let me know. But thank you everyone for coming. Just so you know, as a participant on this webinar, your microphone and camera has been muted or shut off. This webinar will be recorded and is being recorded and potentially could be viewed at a later time if you want to revisit this webinar, because there's a lot of great information we'll be covering today. During the presentation, we gladly welcome any questions you may have on the topic that we're discussing today. And if you do have questions, please use the Q&A box, which is on the bottom of your screen or the top, depending on where the toolbar is for this webinar. Use the Q&A box to type in your questions or your comments. Throughout the presentation, we will try to get through as many questions as we can, and we'll try to answer them at the very end of the webinar. But if we don't, please don't worry. Again, by using the Q&A box, typing your question there, all those questions will be recorded, and we can send an email with all those responses to those questions if we don't get through them today. The conversation and topics may be very interesting. A lot of you come from various backgrounds and may be really needing more immediate support and guidance at this time. And we encourage you, if you do need immediate support, to contact Tri-City at our toll-free number, which is 866-623-9500, and that will connect you to a receptionist, and you let them know what resources or information or departments that you're looking for support in, and they can connect you to them right away. And as always, if there is an extreme emergency, please call 911. When you registered and clicked on the link for this webinar today, there should have been a second screen that shows up, which is a SurveyMonkey. We highly encourage and would appreciate if you took a moment after this webinar to complete that survey. It gives you an opportunity to provide your feedback, thoughts, and comments about today's presentations, which is very helpful to us. And again, thank you for your time and your attendance in today's webinar. So Dr. Burke, if you have unmuted yourself, you are free to take over at this time.
I have unmuted myself. Good morning, everybody. It's so good to be here. So thank you, Lisa. So like Lisa said, we're going to be talking about early psychosis, and I hope this will be a learning experience for everyone who's attending our webinar. Okay, so did you know that 1 in 5 youth ages 13 to 18 experience severe mental disorders in a given year? And the data indicates that psychosis impacts adolescents and young adults. And the National Institutes of Mental Health report that in the United States, approximately 100,000 adolescents and young people experience what is known as first episode psychosis yearly. And this number, 100,000, is actually is old data, and it's been around for a long time, and it's throughout the research literature. So I would imagine that at this point, there's actually more than 100,000 adolescents and young people who are experiencing first episode psychosis. Okay, next. Did you know that per the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration, also known as SAMHSA, that most mental health clinicians find that individuals with first episode psychosis experience warning signs of illness during adolescence and early adulthood. And we're going to talk a lot about experiencing early warning signs, because it's really important, and I really want people to understand what those warning signs are. So we're going to put more emphasis on that later on in the presentation. Okay, the average time of an individual to seek and obtain treatment for psychosis is over a year, and in some cases, well over a year. And we're also going to talk about why this is important, and we'll talk about that later on in the presentation as well. And research shows that early intervention leads to better outcomes for individuals experiencing psychosis. Next. So these are our learning objectives. So when you leave our presentation, it is my hope that you will know what psychosis is and is not, and you'll understand some of the causes and onsets of psychosis, and recognizing the warning signs of psychosis. And I mentioned that that's really important, so I really hope that that's really clear in this presentation. And also hope you will understand what it means to build resiliency and hope through early intervention. Okay, what is psychosis? So the term psychosis describes conditions that affect the mind, causing contact or a loss of contact with reality, and difficulty or trouble deciding what's real and what's not real. And psychosis is a term that is often confusing. So in the next slide, I'm going to talk about it a little bit more and hope to really clarify what psychosis is. But please know that psychosis, when someone's experiencing those symptoms, it makes it harder or almost impossible for the person to know what is real, to think clearly, to communicate, to relate to others, and to feel emotions. It's very, very difficult for the person to understand. And we also have a slide later on that gives some examples of what a person who's experiencing psychosis, what's that like for that person. So that's an interesting slide that we'll address later on as well. Okay, we can move on. Okay. What is psychosis? Psychosis is not a mental disorder like schizophrenia or major depression or bipolar disorder, but psychosis is a symptom or a group of symptoms, a collection or cluster of symptoms that are related to various disorders such as schizophrenia. And the three most common symptoms are delusions, hallucinations, disorganized thought, and speech. So delusions are those false beliefs that seem really real. Individuals with delusions may believe that other people are spying on them or want to harm them or their families. And if I told you with high conviction that I was married to Barack Obama, and no matter what you told me, I did not believe that I wasn't married to Barack Obama, I would be experiencing a delusion. I'm not sure how Michelle would feel about that, but I'm convinced that would be an example of a delusion. So what are hallucinations? Hallucinations are those things that you hear, see, smell, taste, or feel that no one else can hear, see, taste, or feel. Hallucinations affect the senses. We have 5 senses, so we have 5 different types of hallucinations. The most common hallucination is called auditory hallucination, and that affects how we hear. You'll often hear people talk about hearing voices where they're talking about auditory hallucinations. And then disorganized thought and speech. So the person's thoughts may be very fast or slow, they may stop suddenly, or the person might feel that the thoughts are outside their control. The person may be talking to you and thinking that they're making perfectly good sense, but you as the listener are saying, huh? What are you saying? What are you talking about? It doesn't make sense. That's an example of disorganized thoughts. Okay. Next. Okay. Now, because psychosis affects a person's mind, feelings, and behavior, everybody who develops psychosis experiences it differently. So your experience of psychosis would be different from my experience. So let's go over some things that might be happening when somebody's experiencing psychosis. Hallucinations, we already talked about hallucinations, visual, auditory. There's also a hallucination called tactile, which relates to the senses. Olfactory, which relates to one's smell. And then we have changes in body movement, which means the body movements are slow and labored. Or the person might just be sitting there staring blankly at you with no expression whatsoever. That would be a change in the body movement. And then we have changes in thinking. The person might become mistrusting and suspicious and might not believe what you're telling them. Then we also notice changes in behavior. The sleep pattern might change. The person might find it difficulty falling asleep and staying asleep, or just sleeping very short periods of time. Changes in behavior could relate to withdrawal, where the person is isolating in their room and disconnecting from family and friends. Also, mood changes. Changes in school or job performance. And with adolescents, changes in school performance is a very good indicator that something is going on. As we mentioned, disorganized thoughts and speech. And then self-care declines. The person isn't bathing and grooming with regularity. And so you notice that that's different than what it used to be. So these are things that we look at that lets us know that something could be going on. Okay, next. So I mentioned earlier that this is a slide where people who experience psychosis, these are some of the things that they experience. I won't read all of them. I'll just pick out a few. But you can imagine how challenging it would be to have psychosis. For example, people and things randomly become scary. You're paranoid about the world around you, but you don't want to be. Your feelings went away. You feel betrayal. Oh God, is that real or is that me? So just kind of imagine what that experience would be like if you had that. Okay, next. Now let's talk about psychosis episodes. So there are times when psychotic symptoms are more intense or frequent, and they interfere with everyday life. And these are called episodes. And the duration of an episode can vary from person to person, from episode to episode. An episode can last a few days, a few hours, a few months, a few weeks, years without proper support and treatment. So thus, the important thing is early identification and intervention are the key to reducing future episodes. Okay, next. So what are some causes of psychosis? Because psychosis occurs in a variety of mental and physical disorders. it's very difficult to pinpoint the definitive cause of psychotic episodes. So, for example, psychosis can occur in Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, HIV, lupus, seizures, and in substances like alcohol and cocaine, crystal meth, LSD, and marijuana. And as I mentioned a little earlier, various mental disorders like depression, bipolar, schizophrenia. And people can have a genetic predisposition. For example, if you have a close family member, a mother or a father, who has experienced schizophrenia, you may have a likelihood that you will also experience schizophrenia. Okay, next. Onset of psychosis. Very important to know that psychosis affects all people in all cultures, classes, and genders. The onset of symptoms typically occur between the ages of 16 and 25. And that's not to say that if you are older than 25, you can't have an onset of schizophrenia. Just like if you're younger than 16, it is possible for you to have an onset of schizophrenia, but these are the typical ages. And typically people experiencing psychosis, they don't engage in treatment until after 52 to 74 weeks, as I said earlier, and in some cases, much more than that. And this is after the onset of the illness. This is more than a year. And what's important about this number, or this number of weeks, is that the earlier someone comes in for treatment, the better the outcomes. And in the corner we have, I rarely talk about my psychosis. I was ashamed of myself, even though it wasn't my fault. And perhaps with that thinking, it keeps the person from wanting to get treatment. Okay, next. So these are some factors that contribute to the delay in treatment. Number one, stigma is a big reason why people don't come into treatment. Think about it. Think about what you have heard about mental illness. And think about what people say about the mentally ill. Oh, you're crazy. Oh, you're crazy. So you don't want to be identified as being crazy, and that can affect your willingness to seek treatment and delay it. Also, trying to solve problems for ourselves, trying to medicate with substances, and that can be the beginning of a substance abuse issue. Spiritual support and natural remedies. And we're not certainly saying that you shouldn't seek spiritual support, but if you do, just please know that mental health intervention and treatment is also available. And then lack of knowledge about symptoms. People simply don't know what to look for and what it means. The community might not know about warning signs and what to look for if their child is having psychotic symptoms. Also, beliefs about treatment, as I said earlier. What do you mean treatment? What is that? What is that supposed to do? Lack of education and lack of knowledge. And then dismissing symptoms by family, individual, or medical providers as this is just a teenage thing and they'll grow out of it. Well, in the mental health profession, we know that they don't just grow out of it, that it's very serious and intervention needs to occur. Accessibility is also a factor that contributes to delay. Hey, where do I go for treatment? No, I never heard of Tri-City. I don't know anything about that. Do I have insurance? Can they see me if I don't have it? So all these are factors that play into accessibility. And then fear. Is something wrong with me? Is something wrong with my child? Is it my fault? Did I do something wrong? So all these factors play into whether someone seeks treatment immediately or whether they hold back and don't come in at all. And then we have that big question mark. So I'm going to ask you, is there something else that you think might contribute to a delay in treatment? If you think of something, please write it in the Q&A. And then we'll have somebody read the response. So I'm going to take a few minutes and allow you to do that. Okay, if there are no responses, we'll move on. But if you come up with one, please feel free to write it and we can address it. Okay, we can move on. Thank you. Okay, what can happen without treatment? A lot of things can happen without treatment, okay? And as we talked about a decline in school and work performance, that's what could happen without treatment. Behavioral issues can happen without treatment. We mentioned this earlier, self-medication or self-medicating with substances. This being the beginning of a substance abuse issue. This can happen without treatment. Loss of support because people might think, hey, they don't understand me. They don't get me. They don't understand that I'm the ruler of the world. That can certainly happen without treatment. Deeper false beliefs, becoming more suspicious, more mistrusting, delusions developing. That can all happen without treatment. And then withdrawing from family and friends, isolating, staying in the room, in your own world, in your own reality, disconnecting from family, disconnecting from friends. That's a problem. And then you have thoughts of suicide could happen. Where the person feels like, I can't deal with this anymore. I'm out. And then you get possible suicide attempts. Now, psychiatric hospitalization, that's a good thing that could happen without treatment. That is a good thing because that allows an opportunity for the person to become stabilized on medication and be referred to outpatient services and early intervention programs such as the one that's going to happen at Tri-City. So that would be a good thing, psychiatric hospitalization. Okay, so these are the things that can happen without treatment. Okay, next. This is actually one of my favorite slides. Don't panic. Not all psychosis causes distress. So a significant proportion of the general population falls into what's called the psychotic-like experiences category. So what does that mean? Well, you might see or hear something that no one else sees or hears or believes. And usually these things are positive and they cause minimal to no distress, like, hey, I saw an angel, or I felt my family member talking to me, or I heard the voice of God speak to me. And what you need to know is that 8% of the general population falls into the psychotic-like experiences. So I want you to take a minute and think about it. Have you ever had a psychotic-like experience? Just think about it for a minute. And you don't have to share, but just think about it. Because I will share that I have had a few psychotic-like experiences. So one day I was walking down the street minding my own business, and I'm telling you that I heard somebody call, hey, Patricia, hey, Patricia. I turned around and there was nobody there. And I thought, okay, that's weird. And I remember saying, that's weird, okay. And I can also remember an incident when I was getting into my car and I heard somebody call, Patricia. I turned around, there was nobody there. And I thought, okay. But what you need to understand is that those experiences, like I said, happen in 8% of the population, and it didn't cause me any distress. It didn't happen again, and it didn't cause me to seek help. So with psychotic-like experiences, they typically don't occur frequently. They don't worsen in severity over time, and they don't cause distress. And like I said, they don't cause the person to seek help. The concern is that when experiences start causing distress, they impact your daily life. And it's important to note that when adolescents have psychotic experiences and they become frequent, there is an increased risk that they can develop it can develop into a mental disorder. And that's with adolescents. Okay, next. Warning signs of psychosis. The start of mild psychotic symptoms may be preceded by weeks, months, years of unusual behavior. And family members are the first, typically, to notice if their individual in their household is thinking or acting differently. So they're the first to notice if they have an adolescent and he's staying in the room weeks on end, not coming out, not interacting. Hygiene has declined because he's becoming suspicious, mistrusting, has these weird, odd beliefs. Okay, so family members are the key, and they're important in making those early referrals. Okay, next. So as I told you, we were going to talk more about early warning signs of psychosis. Here you go. All right. Increased difficulty in school or work, and we've talked about that before. Withdrawal from family and friends. Difficulty concentrating and thinking clearly. And those problems will likely manifest in the schoolwork. Then, as I mentioned earlier, suspiciousness and mistrust of others. Changes in the way things look and sound. And that refers to a hypersensitivity to sound, taste, touch, feel, and that's common with people who are experiencing psychosis. Odd thinking or odd behavior. An example of odd thinking, person thinking now that all of a sudden they've inherited superpowers. That would be odd thinking. Emotional outbursts or a lack of emotion, where you start to see the person just stare blankly and they're not showing facial expressions. That is a warning sign. And as I mentioned earlier, poor personal hygiene. Johnny's not bathing like he used to. He's not brushing his teeth. He's not using deodorant. He's starting to smell. Early warning sign. So is someone you know at risk? All right, next. And these are 5 signs of early psychosis that parents should watch out for, and they're pretty much like the ones that we just talked about. What might be a little different is the disorganized thinking, such as difficulty concentrating, speaking and thinking clearly, and trouble reading and comprehending in school, and comprehending what other people might say. That would be a very important tip for parents to look out for. And as we mentioned earlier, social withdrawal. You know, Johnny used to be on the basketball team, and now he doesn't want to play basketball. He doesn't even want to go out with his friends anymore. He's just stuck in the house and he's isolated. Very important warning sign to be aware of. Okay, next. Resiliency and hope through early intervention. So research produced by the National Institute of Mental Health demonstrated that coordinated specialty care treatment and supports help prevent the full onset of illness for high-risk individuals. And a high-risk individual would refer to somebody, for example, who has a parent who has a mental disorder, okay? And improves long-term outcomes for these individuals who already experienced first episodes of psychosis. Early intervention is the key. Okay? Research has shown that the sooner a person is in treatment, the better the adolescent or young person will do in managing his symptoms and building those internal supports, that resiliency, that ability to bounce back for himself, herself, and their family. Okay, next. So this is what treatment looks like, and this is known as specialty coordinated mental health services. So we have here at the top medication and primary care. And medication usually involves stabilizing the individual who's having the psychotic symptoms. Then we have psychotherapy, and that can be individual psychotherapy, and it also can be group psychotherapy as well. And then we have something called family education and support. And I have mentioned a couple of times that families are very, very important to the recovery and treatment of those with schizophrenia and psychosis. So educating them is also important to know what's going on. And this education can be done in what's called multi-family group setting. And then we have supported employment. and education. Oftentimes we have young people who are working or they want to get a job and they're experiencing psychosis and they don't know how to navigate it. So with supported education and employment, the person can help the psychotic individual navigate how to get a job, how to stay on a job, as well as how to do better with the academic aspects as well. And then we have case management. So as you can see, all these circle around the client to support the client through effective treatment. Okay. So what can you do? Play it safe. Take family concerns seriously. Don't dismiss. Don't dismiss behavioral changes as a teenage thing or as being a part of adolescence, because we know that psychotic symptoms are not a part of adolescence and they're very difficult and they're going to cause difficulty for that adolescence. And intervention really needs to start as soon as possible. Keep the door open. Be patient. Ongoing support is essential for recovery. And then make a referral. Call us. We are here to help. We want to get you the help and the support that you need to get your loved one in treatment as soon as possible. Next. So this is our referral process. Access Tri-City Services. So if you're a young adult or legal guardian, call us and you can request services at Tri-City. And this is our access line, 909-623-6131. Don't hesitate. Even if you're not sure, still give us a call. We're here to help. Okay. Outreach. So we have an outreach team because not everybody really wants to be involved in treatment. Okay. So let's talk about what our outreach team does. So they provide individual contact with a young person or a child or family. And they'll provide conversations and engage in services. They connect individual and families with resources. And here's what's important to know. Our outreach team can provide multiple visits and they can make outreach contacts for as long as it takes. And sometimes it can take quite a while because you want to make that connection with the person and to kind of ease their apprehension and to let them know, hey, we're here to help. And we're available to go out as much as possible. So you would contact the intensive outreach team manager, and that would be Sean Smith. And you just call 909-623-6131. Okay. And we also offer additional support. So we have what's called a supplemental crisis line. And the supplemental crisis line services are after hours to get clinical support, and it's available to any Tri-City resident who is not enrolled in formal services. So if you live in Pomona, Laverne, Claremont, and you are not enrolled in Tri-City, these supplemental services are for you. And you would call 909-623-6131. Okay. So we've sort of kind of come to the end of our presentation. And I certainly want to thank everyone for participating and coming in to our webinar. And I really hope that you've learned about early psychosis and know that together we can build resiliency in the midst of psychosis. If you have any questions or know of a community organization or group that could benefit from this training, please contact us. Don't hesitate. Our numbers are listed below. Deborah Johnson, 909-766-7307, or me, Dr. Patricia Wallace-Burke, 909-766-7340. Okay. Before we get to this part, did anybody have any questions? Because we got time for questions and answers. Do we have any questions?
Hi, Dr. Burke. This is Lisa. No, I don't see any questions. There's just a comment that it was a really great job, a lot of great information. So,
Okay.
But no questions at this time.
Okay. That is good. Okay, then we'll just go over our next to last slide. All right. So Tri-City Mental Health is here to help, and we have what's called community navigators, and they provide linkage and referral to local resources, including food, medical, legal, mental health, senior information, and more. And this is the number, 888-436-3246. We also have the Wellbeing Supportive Chat for non-emergency support, and that mainline number is 909-623-6131, Monday through Friday from 8 to 5, and you would be asked to be connected to Chris Anzalone. And then we also have the 24/7 crisis support services. If you are interested in if you are experiencing emotional distress and not receiving treatment services at Tri-City, our supplemental crisis line, 909-623-6131. You call that and you will be speaking with a licensed therapist. Okay, and this is actually our very last slide. So I want to thank everyone who participated.
Thank you, Dr. Burke. I really do appreciate your time today. A lot of great, helpful information. For those who are still on, please use the Q&A box. We have, actually, we were so worried about going over, and I think we did a really good job of ending with some time to spare. So good job, Dr. Burke. I know timing was a concern for you, and I think you just knocked it out of the park. So congratulations to you. A lot of great information. And for those of you who are still with us, please just know that every Tuesday, as I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we host a webinar, and they can be found at Tri-Cities webpage. If you go to community support programs, trainings, or events, you can find future webinars. And as I said, all webinars are recorded and can be viewed at a later time. And for all of our webinars, they are open and free for anyone in the community. So please share, and if you're interested in hosting one for your site or organization, please email us, and we will be more than happy to connect with you to provide this information for specific agencies or organizations. And I think that's it at this time. I don't see any other questions coming up. So on that note, I'll give everyone a chance to grab lunch a little bit earlier than anticipated, because we're pretty much done.
We are.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, everyone. And we will see you next week, hopefully. Bye-bye.